Next section, malware. Malware is something we do not want on our systems. Malware comes in many forms. It would be foolish to not have some sort of antivirus on your system and potentially anti-malware product. In company environments, you most likely have a full-blown solution like McAfee as an example. One of their products that would take care of you, as a total product, not just parts. And in the home environment, we may not have a full-blown security product like work, but we would hopefully have an antivirus that would pick up most likely Trojan horse programs, viruses, possibly rootkits, but malware is basically anything very undesirable to our system. Now looking through some of the more relevant ones, worms they're basically software that is going to reproduce on its own. It's a self-contained program. It does not need or rely on anything else. It's independent, but yet it's able to replicate or reproduce on its own and spread swiftly. So worms can be quite dangerous. Logic bombs. On television many times they'll call it a virus, and they'll say that this virus is going to happen at midnight on a certain date. And really what they're defining is a logic bomb. But I'm sure if they said logic bomb on television, nobody would know what they're talking about. So a logic bomb, it is malware, it's code, but it will execute based on a date, time, or event. Trojan horse program, you have to be careful what you download. If you know anybody that loves to do the peer-to-peer software and go to those torrent websites, BitTorrent websites, they're likely to get infected with Trojan horse programs. And what would happen is they're downloading a program that they really want that does most likely work. But it's been combined with an evildoer program. It's been combined with another program. So I don't know if they say program disguised as another program. More likely, I think it's the real program. But you have another devious program combined with it, and they were saved as one unit. So when you get your program you wanted to download, you also get this backdoor to your system for a hacker to potentially find. And with Trojan horse programs, unfortunately, a lot of times there's keystroke loggers in there, so they can log your keystrokes and catch your passwords because you typed them in. They can look at your screen, see what you're doing on your screen, upload and download. I mean, it's just a really bad thing. Now, a virus, we get antivirus, and antivirus picks up way more than viruses. But basically, a virus, it's a small application or code that infects applications. It does have a dependency, unlike worms. It does need another piece of software to latch onto. So it can travel with that piece of software or on that boot sector, whatever it may be. And with the viruses, they just basically something you copy to a friend, hey, you want this, and you may get a virus with this something you wanted. I would say viruses have grown way beyond this. Viruses are just growing day by day. We could write this book today and say a certain number, and tomorrow it would be wrong because it continues to have more and more viruses and worms day by day. As far as some of the viruses, we have macro viruses. You hear Microsoft Word and Excel have macro capability. Well, there's viruses based on that. That's why sometimes macros are turned off in Microsoft Word. Boot sector viruses, where malicious code is inserted into the disk boot sector. That's a nasty one right there. I've had those before. Compression viruses initializes when you decompress the file. You have stealth viruses. It hides its footprints and changes it has made. Anything stealthy is trying to hide its presence in some way. Trying to be stealth. Any sort of morphic is some sort of mutation. Polymorphic makes copies and changes those copies in some way. Think mutation, morphic. Multipartite can infect in different places, the boot sector, the file system, and of course, sometimes you have self-garbling viruses modifies its own code to try to not be detected. So it can be pretty tricky. And just as a comment, I mean, if you're in a home environment and you don't have one of those full-blown products, it's just a full antivirus and everything else product, you could consider an antivirus plus an anti-malware product as well. You know, there's like, see, there's Malwarebytes, there's Spybot Search and Control. I haven't used that in a while. So, you know, you use those in addition to your antivirus. You normally can only run one antivirus on a computer. You don't normally run more than one because they'll fight each other. But you could get away with actually running an antivirus and a separate anti-malware product. Windows 8 comes with Defender, Windows Defender as an antivirus, and then you could, you know, tack on like Malwarebytes if you wanted to in a home environment. Work environment, again, they most likely have you covered. Spyware. Now, continuing with malware, spyware, software or hardware installed on a computer that gathers information about you. And of course, the bad guy could later on retrieve this information and you would not know this. So spyware can come in hardware, but many times it's in software. It can be broken down into surveillance. I mean, there's surveillance spyware, advertising spyware. It's very important that we keep our security software up to date and we scan for things happening like this. And could even have surveillance software to monitor employees' computer usage. I mean, you just get used to it. You're being spied on most likely. Some people will even cover their webcams on their computer, just like I have, because it's come out in the news before that I think it was the FBI was able to actually turn on your webcam without the light coming on and you don't even know it. So you never know. Trojan horse programs we've talked about a bit, but remember the Trojan horse, again, it normally you download a program. The reason I pick on BitTorrents is it's where people go out there to Pirate Bay and different BitTorrents with the idea of downloading free software because they don't want to pay for that software. Well, you can sometimes get it free out there, but unfortunately it comes infected. So now you've just put something on your system, most likely a Trojan horse program, and you've got to get that off there. Because hackers can scan your system, scan your ports, and see if you're running various Trojans, and then they could potentially take control of your system and spy on you and, you know, see what you're typing, look at your computer. I mean, they have complete control. As you can see, it has, you know, obviously Trojan horses go back to history, and that's where they kind of came up with the name for Trojan horse programs on your computer. Backdoors, yes. When I think of Trojan horse programs, I think of a backdoor. Also rootkits. Rootkits are related to this, but they're just much deeper into your system and most likely really need to reinstall. But with Trojan horse programs, you don't know that when you download that piece of software that it came with this, but it most likely did come with the Trojan if it's illegal software, something you were supposed to pay for. Now, programmers would put maintenance hooks in the software intentionally to be able to get into the software directly and access, you know, allow entry to code at specific points without security checks, but this was supposed to be removed before the software gets sold. Denial of service, DOS. Denial of service really comes in two forms. So we have denial of service and distributed denial of service. And the intention, you see in the first picture, well, it's not really the best picture. Let's see, if you had a bad guy attacking a system, we think of that probably more as a denial of service. But if you have many people attacking a system, it's more of a distributed denial of service. It was just a one-person denial of service, but when you see the picture on the right where you actually have, it starts out almost like a denial of service. The attackers infecting the zombies, that looks like a denial of service. But then the zombies are actually doing, basically draining the resources of other systems, so there's many of them doing the attack. That has just changed it to a distributed denial of service. Generally, it seems like these days, if it's one machine attacking another machine, it doesn't seem to do a lot of damage from what I can tell. But when you employ many other machines, what could really happen is we could be out there, people are playing with BitTorrents, and they get infected and they don't know that they have some software that could allow them to be controlled as zombies. And these zombie systems are then being told when to attack an unwilling victim there. And then suddenly we have a distributed denial service that you were part of and you didn't know you were part of. So the lead system is really called the master, or it could be the attacker here. And then the zombies were being controlled. And as far as a little bit of preventative, you could consider some sort of filtering coming in or going out. Ingress filtering, thinking firewalling, or egress filtering, going out. Distributed denial of service, just showing some stories of when these have happened, and it can continue on and on. When you think of distributed denial of service attacks, looking at this slide, you can realize they go back really far. So it continues with this. And they can be pretty difficult on a company when they cannot be there for their legitimate clients. Their legitimate customers are obviously very aggravated that they were not able to access their banking when they wanted to. Oh gosh, my bank's down again. It has a distributed denial of service. I think it'd only take one time before I would leave my bank over something like that. We have no tolerance, I guess, with this. We expect perfection these days because banking, for example, they're keeping our money. Network devices and sniffers. Packet sniffers, these are basically software that can intercept packets on a LAN. It records the transmissions. It's able to look at the packets. You can take the packets and take them down to a very deep level, decode, analyze them. Sometimes called a network monitor or network analyzer, maybe even wireless capability, Ethernet sniffer, protocol analyzer. Protocol analyzer is probably the most common one I hear. As far as software that we use, Wireshark is super popular. Its predecessor was called Ethereal. They can be used in good ways by network administrator types for troubleshooting. They can also be used by hackers. And when it comes to sniffing, we have passive sniffing. We can think back to when we had hubs. And basically sniffing traffic through a hub without injecting packets. So everything just kind of goes through it, and what it sees, it records. Hubs have been basically replaced by switches. Active sniffing, you think of the days of switches, which was a layer 2 data link layer device of the OSI model, which means it understood what MAC addresses are. So active sniffing is sniffing traffic on your local LAN, but in order to do that, packets must be injected that cause data to be rerouted to the sniffing machine. And essentially connecting to a switch takes care of this. Okay, firewalls, intrusion detection systems, intrusion prevention systems. Essentially, we have firewalls. Sometimes people will actually call these firewalls. It kind of depends on their functionality. We're going to look at some of this. Firewalls, first line of defense. We think of a firewall as something we can program to allow certain traffic through and deny other traffic. And we would create those rules. And we would have firewalls, as you can see in the picture, in different places. It's not like you have one firewall and that does everything. You could have firewalls at different areas within your network. It's kind of like having a military base with the front gate that you go through, and that's a security check you have to get through, kind of like a firewall. And then you may get to a given building, and then you have to get through, maybe there's some sort of security to get through that building, then maybe there's more security to get through to get into a given room. Intrusion detection systems can be considered somewhat of a defense. It's more of detection. It detects what looks like attacking traffic of a hacker, and it notifies you. It's not perfect. False positive. Sometimes it will say something is an attack and it's not really. Intrusion prevention systems are like intrusion detection systems, except they're able to take it into their own hands, and if the intrusion prevention system says, I think I'm being attacked, it will simply stop the connection. So it's able to do something about it.